I am so excited. My Facebook buddy is here. My real Facebook friend, the one and only Briana. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to chat.
Yep, and this is so new, and you're my first West Coast guest. So I know the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef has been polarizing this year. How have things been in
For
California
sure.
with that shakeup?
Oh, it's been amazing. I actually went to the pop out. I made it a primary thing that I had to do. So I took my best friend and we had a ball. So we're still riding the high for sure.
Definitely. And I think even in the social media world, like that showdown, like an epic showdown, one of, if not the
Epic.
best rap battle ever. I don't think I've seen anyone surgically take out an opponent the way Kendrick did.
Right.
So, what kind of impact do you think it had on just the social media landscape?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting because it really brought back the FOMO that we used to have with social media, where you had to be online at a specific point. It wasn't enough to just catch up. So the tricky thing was, of course, they were dropping in the middle of the night, or we didn't know when they were going to drop. There was no like date or scheduled drop or anything of that nature. So it was very much like if you know, you know, and if you don't, hopefully you have somebody who loves you enough to text you and say like, all right, we're having this conversation. So I think it brought back like old school social media where everyone was like live tweeting and live sharing things that were happening in real time.
Speaking of being glued to your phone, it's almost like when you're waiting for your TEDx talk to drop, right? So,
Right.
we're here to talk TEDx. I just want to start from the beginning. Like, I know
Yeah.
you're like old school social media where you started your career as a 12-year-old doing community management, like, so you
Right.
people don't know social media like social media. But when it comes to TEDx, like, talk to me about the connection between your career and also what landed you on the stage or even inspired you or pushed you to get on the TEDx stage.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved speaking. I've been doing public speaking since I could chat. I always tell people like one of my very first quote unquote like events that I did was my preschool graduation. Didn't know a whole bunch, but I did want to welcome the parents and the loved ones and things like that. My mom boohooed and all this stuff. But I've just always been very fascinated with sharing my voice and amplifying the voices of others when I can. So, of course, as I started diving more into like, hey, I think I want to get a little bit deeper into public speaking, I've been impacted by inspirational speakers and keynote speakers and things of that nature. And I want to be able to do the same. And so I feel like the Super Bowl of speaking, for all intents and purposes, seems to be, the TEDx stage. So I put that on my vision board and made it known. And one thing that I've really gathered from a lot of wisdom from people and mentors and inspirational people that I know is that it's not enough to just, think of a goal or think of a dream. You have to share it with people because then people will be able to help you make it happen. So that's exactly what I did. And that kind of transpired into how I got the opportunity.
Wow, that's interesting that you say the vision board. You're the second person or the second TEDx speaker that I've spoken to that told me that they put that on their vision board at the top of the year. So let's unpack that a little
Hmm.
bit. And because there's someone out there who's like, man, I don't know if I can do that. Like, that's not for people like me, right? Talk to me about the
Right.
importance of actually speaking and speaking your future and your goals into existence, whether it's in writing on a vision board or simply speaking to your friends, like you said.
Yeah, I think words have power. It's funny, there's a quote from Albus Dumbledore from Harry Potter, and he says, words are, in his opinion, his humble opinion, the most inexhaustible form of magic. And if that quote wasn't so long, I would definitely have it tattooed. I'll probably have it like posted on my wall at some point. But I really think that that is the case. Words are magic. Words do inspire power to start making things happen. So, it's really nice to be able to, like you mentioned, writing things down, sharing it with trusted colleagues or friends or family or loved ones, and really just making it known. I think that society as a whole has gotten really upset being self-made, and I have never claimed myself to be self-made. I am the result of so much support, and I have such an amazing support system. So sharing the things that I want to happen, that I want to have, happen. And I'm, a very spiritual person, and I'm connected with my faith. And I do believe that when two or more come together, like there's even more amplified power. So sharing, my idea that I want to get on stages and I want to talk, I want to speak, I want to pour into other people really allows that magic to start moving and start shaking. And then the opportunities start growing from there. And that's exactly what has happened anytime I've been bold enough to share, and be vulnerable with people.
Love that. So talk to me about the selection application process. What was that like for you? Because from speaking to different TEDx speakers, it feels like everyone's story is just a little different. Talk to us about
Mhm.
your journey in terms of the application process and also being selected.
For sure. So exactly what we were just talking about as far as like letting it be known. So I shared that I wanted to do a TEDx talk with a former colleague of mine, and it was just in passing. She had done one. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's something that I want to do. So even with us not working together anymore, we of course kept in touch. And she let me know that she was now becoming the organizer of a TEDx event. So she's like, hey, I remember that you mentioned that you wanted to do this. We're opening our speaker applications. And funny enough, before she knew that I was like really getting serious about it, I had joined a cohort of people who were looking to, get ready to prep for it, get some coaching involved. And I got to the application process of that coaching, and I didn't necessarily move forward because I was like, okay, I want to flesh this out a little bit more. I don't know if this is for me, or let's revisit it. If it's for me, it's for me. If it's not, it's not. So when she came across and let me know that the applications were open, I had like my application built out. I just hadn't sent it anywhere. So I was like, okay, I'll throw it out there. I'll put my hat in the arena. And maybe a few months, not even a few months, I feel like maybe 6 weeks or so went by. It was around the holidays when it happened. So, of course, we all know the holidays are crazy. We're on and off of work, we're with family, we're traveling and things like that. So, I got an email maybe around Christmas time saying that I was selected. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. But I also wasn't in the mindset to like receive it at that point. So, when I tell you, I literally started the email and kept it pushing and just kind of like, ignored it for a while, which seems a little ungrateful, like looking back, but I just was not in the mindset to like receive it. And I was just like, I'll work on this a little bit later. So I just kind of let it sit there until then she started. I loved her because she was such an involved organizer. Every TEDx event is different. So what was great about working with this one, so I did TEDx Apex, Apex, North Carolina, and Arena Ferguson is the organizer, and she is amazing. And I cannot sing her praises high enough. She actually scheduled out times for all of us as speakers to get on a Zoom, with actual professional speaker trainers. So not everyone does that. Sometimes it's like you're up, you're up for your own, up to your own devices. But she wanted to ensure that we all had a fighting chance to really shine and really be ourselves on stage, but also present at the best of our capabilities. So it wasn't until I was getting those invites to those sessions where I was like, oh, actually, this is actually a big deal.
Wow, very, very interesting stuff. I had a very similar situation with the inbox. It wasn't
Hmm.
that I'll get to it, but when I tell you, I had this moment of severe, doubt and
Yeah.
imposter syndrome where I wanted this thing so bad. I knew that I wanted it. I had worked a few years to get to a place where I finally got approved. And when I got that email, it was like fear took over. I was like, but what if I can't
For
remember
sure.
what if I can't remember my stuff? Or like what if my speech is whack? Like I had all of this doubt. And
Right.
then we went on a trip to like the mountains in North Georgia, and we had family
Hmm.
there. And I remember something came over me, and it was really like my brother and my mom, they passed away, and I was thinking about them, and they were like, hey, come on, tell our story. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's it. Like I have to do it. But I feel you. I definitely let that thing sit. I must have waited like 5 days before I signed my contract.
Right. And see, I'm quick to sign a contract. Like I don't like to let things sit like that, but dealing with the like what's happening now, and I can sometimes be the ultimate procrastinator. So getting that email in December and knowing that the event wasn't until April, I was like, oh, I have plenty of time to like work on this and deal with this. But as we all know, like time is not waiting for anybody lately,
Mm-mm.
and things have been escalating very quickly. And that's exactly what happened, where it's like the date just got closer and closer. And I think to your point, I definitely had some imposter syndrome to the point where I almost bowed out and didn't do it. So I was just so much in the mindset of like, this isn't for me. It came too easy. The application process came to me. I didn't have to look for it. I was selected. Maybe they don't actually mean it. So I almost like literally bowed out of it and like didn't get my flight until maybe 10 days before, didn't get my hotel until a few days before. Like I was being reckless.
Well, I think that it's important to note that sometimes these opportunities come our way and people have different, pathways to get there. One thing that
Hmm.
I'm learning about TEDx and being in this community now, because I'm leaning all the way into the community. I'm like,
For
I'm a
sure.
TEDx speaker. Let me really be a TEDx speaker and like
Yeah.
not just with my talk, but with my interactions with other humans and other people who are
Right.
interested in this stuff. I find that literally thousands and thousands of people get rejected
Yeah.
every year. So it's such a privilege, right? It's a
Hmm.
privilege to be able to share your story, but to share your story or share your message and idea on this stage that it those kind of emotions and things, like I think it's like human nature because like,
For
you
sure.
know, we all have something important to share. And one thing about your talk that really stood out to me, fighting misinformation in the digital age, is a talk. Make sure you guys
Hmm.
check it out. TEDx Apex 2024, is that you tied in so much of your field of expertise, you know?
Hmm.
So, talk to me a little bit about the creative process and what that was like for you, kind of using stories to tell, to share your idea. And also talk to me about like rehearsals, all of that, the whole process of like getting ready for your talk.
Yeah, so it was funny when I was coming up with the concept of like what it was that I wanted to talk about. This has always been a struggle for me because I'm so multifaceted and multi-passionate. I'm a community manager, but I'm also an ads expert, but I also love, you know, organic social media and the creative process. So it was hard for me to even come up with a concept. And initially, when I was like, oh, this is actually super important, am I the right person to have this conversation? So I wasn't looking at it initially, and that was kind of one of the reasons why I paused the coaching aspect of it because I didn't feel confident that I was the right person to direct this conversation or to spark this idea worth having. But as I started talking to one of my very good friends about it, she was like, actually, you're the perfect person to have this conversation. You see this on a regular basis. So I think that misinformation is, a big word, but a word that we're using constantly because it is something that's very relevant as of right now and the past few years and will continue to grow in relevance as technology is developing. I have a unique vantage point from that working at a tech company, working on these platforms and using them even as a consumer and seeing like how it's impacting people that I know and people that I have crossed in passing. So I felt like it was something that maybe I was uniquely positioned to talk about because I can put it more in layman's terms. Like one of my gifts I feel like is that I can take complex information and make it more digestible and accessible to people who might feel intimidated by, something as big as misinformation. So I really kind of brainstormed like how I view it instead of looking at it from an academic or prescriptive, vantage point. And I'm like, that's not what people need. Most of the people who fall victim to misinformation, especially in the digital age, are regular people who are just going about their day. They see content come across their feed and, they believe it for face value or based off of who shares it. based off of how legit a website looks. So I'm like, okay, I need to speak to those people, not the highfalutin, the academics and the very upper echelon people, just my regular day people. And so that also inspired how I delivered the talk. So with the coaching that we were offered, a lot of people were memorizing their TED talk from, top to bottom. And we all get about anywhere between 8 and 12 minutes, depending on the event. I believe our sweet spot was that 10-minute mark. And I've spoken, I deliver trainings, I facilitate, like this is definitely in my wheelhouse. But I personally don't like to present information by memorizing it or reading off of a script. I feel like I come off very robotic and it doesn't come off as genuine. I'm a very genuine and authentic person. So I felt like I have to kind of freestyle, for lack of a better term. So I came up with some bullets. Initially, I tried my hand at like writing out a script. And it's so funny because I asked ChatGPT, I was like, how long would this be before I like recorded it? And ChatGPT was like, it'll be about 4 minutes. And I was like, that can't be right. So then I actually recorded it and I was like, oh my God, like it's literally only 4 minutes long. And I'm more of a long form writer, but that just was not, the math was not mathing. So instead, I use that as like an entry point and use bullets so that I can have a conversation because it is a talk at the end of the day. So I wanted to be able to talk to people and not at people and make it a little bit more accessible that way so that it gives people time and room to ponder what I'm talking about and see how they want to incorporate it into their lives too.
What advantages do you think your bullet point preparation for your talk had as opposed to memorizing it word for word verbatim?
Oh man, I saw that firsthand at the event. So funny enough, the organizer, again, she had delivered a TED talk before, and one of the things that she experienced was that there were mic issues and there were mic issues at her event. And so we kind of joked, and I grew up in drama, and we have superstitions as actors and staff and things like that. And I feel like we broke a cardinal rule. We talked about the fact that, oh, mic issues won't happen. Mic issues happened. So the way that our lineup was, I think we had 12 people total. So we had six, an intermission, and then six. I was in the second half. And I think the first two presenters went off fine. We had lapel mics. They were able to, use their hands and things of that nature. And the mics went out. So the people who memorized their talks actually had to redo it. So if you are on the stage, right, if you have stage fright already and you memorized your script and you memorized how you were going to, present your talk with hands, and then you are now shackled to a handheld, you're thrown off. And so that's exactly what happened to a few of my fellow speakers, where it was like they memorized it, they knew exactly what they were going to do at certain times, and technical difficulties can and always do happen, and that's exactly what happened. So what was funny to me, I kind of joked in the green room. I was like, because a few people had to redo it, they had to re-record because the recording just wasn't happening, and of course, visibly frustrated for some, and kind of probably lost trains of thought for others. But I joked with them. I'm like, you guys are not getting the same talk if I do it twice. I said, so figure out whatever y'all are going to do. Y'all are not getting the same thing twice. So thankfully, I didn't have to do it but once, and I had a handheld, which is kind of where I thrive anyway. Like I do talk with my hands quite a bit, but I'm usually like in front of a computer. There's a desk handy and things of that nature if I'm not walking. And for those who haven't been on the TEDx stage, there is a red dot for a reason, and you are supposed to stay on that dot. So walking around is not accessible to us as speakers of this platform. So it actually helped keep me grounded.
Very nice. No, you know, I've worked a bunch of TEDx events before speaking
Hmm.
at them. So I started off like doing social media for TEDx events, right? A couple of TEDx
Right.
events here in Georgia. And one of my first one, the speakers were not staying on the red dot. They was
Hmm.
like moving, and
Moving all over.
I could see the light. Man was like, wait, what is he doing? So that was one thing. And the other thing I wanted to point out was just a little bit in terms of the switching to handheld. For me, I
Hmm.
was so in the zone because I memorized my speech. Like I wrote it
Right.
out, memorized it, rehearsed it a bunch of times. If that would have happened to me, like that would have totally threw me off because
Oh, for sure.
I was so locked in. Like you could,
Yeah.
I had like tunnel vision. All I could see was the experience. So I'm like,
Right.
knock on wood, man. I give you a lot of props because you was ready to roll.
I appreciate it.
So talk to me about. We talked about the creative process. Let's talk a little bit more about the execution. I know we had the
Hmm.
technical mishap, but talk to me about like arriving to the venue. Like, were
Yeah.
you like talking to other people? Were you locked in? Tell me about your process of execution.
Yeah, so I traveled. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and the event was in Apex, North Carolina. So again, because I procrastinated, I didn't get my flight, I didn't get my hotel until like the last minute, and I didn't realize that it was close to, was it Raleigh? I can't remember where I flew into, but there were like no direct flights, and I'm usually a direct flight girl. So I actually took a red eye, which I will never do again. This has officially tainted my potential red eye experience.
Not the
The red
tainted.
eye in the, it was so bad because I was exhausted. Like I went from LA into Atlanta, maybe had like a 2 hour layover or something like that before getting to North Carolina. So by the time that I got there, before we had like a mandatory tech check, kind of not dress rehearsal, but rehearsal for all intents and purposes to kind of get to know the venue and things like that. I was exhausted. I was off of like 1 hour of sleep. So I literally was, very much rallying with the reserve battery that I might have had internally. Um, and again, I we kind of got up on stage, a few of us, just to kind of see how it feels, so that the first time wasn't, the actual day of, and gave like a little snippet. So that was actually the first time that I tried out like a intro. And I'm always big on vibes and big on energy from people. So the energy from the fellow speakers and some of our tech staff was really well received as far as like what I did share. So I'm like, okay, if that works, I will incorporate that, the following day. So I definitely made sure, they hung out after, and I was like, I would love to connect with y'all, but I have zero in my tank left. Like I have to go to sleep. So I went back to, the hotel, and I brought my mom with me. She's like my stylist slash momager. So I really appreciate that she was able to come with me. We got something to eat, went to sleep the next morning. And funny enough, my allergies were toast. I have chronic sinusitis, so thankfully it's been, on the mend for a while. But when I get congested, I'm done. And the pollen count was crazy. And I noticed it when we were descending into ATL, and even more so when we got to North Carolina. And I was like, I can't get on stage sounding like this. I can't breathe. And, so I had to use every single tool in my toolkit to make sure that I was clear. So thank God I got up the next morning and I was clear, because I sounded absolutely awful. Went through a box of tissue and the whole nine. So thankfully I woke up clear, felt good, felt confident, put on some inspirational music. Funny enough, before I got out of bed, I watched one of my very good friends gave a TEDx talk a few years ago. So I watched hers because I was like, I want to make sure that I'm exuding some presence, from somebody that I know who has done it. And that gave me some additional confidence too. Thankfully, we weren't too far from the venue, maybe like 10, 15 minutes away. Drove over, got comfortable, met everyone, because not everyone was able to make the previous event. So met up with everyone, just kind of talked it out, because I'm a very communal person and I wanted to make sure everybody else felt good because if the vibe is good all the way around, then I'm good. So wanted to ease any concerns that other people were having, and, just kind of take it from there, and lots of deep breathing.
Me too. That was
Hmm.
one thing. I was doing a lot of deep breathing. Um, so I know like people do the talk, and some people have
Hmm.
different expectations, right? It seems like for you, you're just in the flow of your life, and it just kind of came as an opportunity to share a message and an idea that you had. But are there any like defined after effects that happen for you professionally, personally, anything that you can share?
Yeah, I think one of the best things that I feel like after completing it is that the people, your support system is way more proud of you than you could possibly be of yourself. So, as much as like I downplay probably every single thing that happens to me just because I'm, like you said, I'm going through the flow and I'm like, whatever is for me, whatever is not. But like my friends and family were so pumped. They were so excited about it. My mom recorded like the first couple minutes, and it's so funny. She did like a really good cliffhanger as far as when she stopped recording. So I sent that because, we edited and sent off and things like that. So you don't get the official talk right away. So I sent it to, a few people and they were like, oh my gosh, like we need to know the exact day that it drops and things like that. So the support system was so amazing. And then when the actual video dropped, I was I'm used to watching myself on screen or hearing my voice, and I know that a lot of people who are very nervous about speaking don't like the sound of their voice. I've gotten over it. I've had to listen to I don't know how many calls that I've done with clients and things like that. So, but for this one, I was really nervous. And it's so funny when I rewatched it, I had a personal experience where I was like, dang, I sound smart. And of course, like I don't remember. And I told people, I was like, I don't remember what I said. I said that was divine intervention. I said what I said. I could probably remember bits and pieces. I said, but again, because I freestyled, I don't remember what I said. But when I watched it back, I was like, dang, like this is actually really good. So I felt really good about it. Was able and more confident to share it with others, share it publicly, post it on my Facebook and my LinkedIn, and just got so much overwhelming support, which felt really good. And it actually opened me up to additional assignments where I'm doing courses for a company. So that's really cool. And same thing, like I just got back from a recording from one and I had the opportunity to kind of freestyle with bullets again. I was like, this is actually like where I thrive. So it's been really fun to kind of just get that reinforced inside myself that is like this is a gift, and if people are receptive to it, I'll continue to provide it.
Mm. What So you said that you dropped the link on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Your community was super excited and supportive. Talk to
Yeah.
maybe the aspiring TEDx speaker about ways that they can maybe leverage social to like bring more awareness to what they're doing in the TEDx community or just in the community at large, and also maybe for any TEDx speakers who might check this out on ways that they can leverage it to get more eyes on their talk or share with their community.
Absolutely. So I think I'm probably not alone in this. The minute that I was done with it, I went to LinkedIn and changed my headline so that it said TEDx speaker, because I was like, okay, I'm now in an elite group of folks and I want folks to know about it. So that was definitely the number one thing that I did. And I think that the great thing is like not letting it die down. And it's what I love about TEDx talks is that they are very evergreen. You're inspiring some kind of person at some junction of their life to do something, to change something. So it doesn't matter when you share it, like it is evergreen. So we should treat it as such. We should go back and say, like, hey, remember when I did this talk about X, Y, and Z? Like these things are coming out. And funny enough, like I definitely am, preaching to my own choir here because my talk is very relevant right now with the political landscape and everyone's using social media. AI is a big deal, which is another reason why I wanted to have that conversation. Find things that are happening in the news. Some call it newsjacking, but like utilize that as a jumping point to insert the conversation where it's not necessarily a shameless plug. It's literally like, hey, this is relevant content for right now. So remembering to infuse it into your everyday content calendar, share it in conversations when it's authentic. Of course, nobody wants to feel like they're being braggadocious or anything like that, but you are officially an authority figure. And if you want to speak more, that's a great calling card for that. If you want to teach more, like that's another great opportunity. So it's fun to even consider. I follow um, a college professor on Threads. And so when I pinned it onto my Threads profile, she was like, "Oh my gosh, like I talked about digital literacy with my my class, I'm going to incorporate this into the syllabus. So like stuff like that gets me jazzed. I'm very big on education. I want to, influence young minds and things like that. So if there's something where you want to use it as that, like sometimes we have to get out of our own way. We will feel very much like, oh, but are they going to notice that I did this or said this or I messed up? And I've cheered my entire life and I've been in dance and things like that. 9 times out of 10, people don't know you made a mistake unless you tell them you make a mistake. So just share the content itself and let people get from it what they need to get from it.
Mm, that's good. That's a nugget. That's a nugget. That's a nugget. Um, so there's a social media professional out there right now who's listening, watching. They got a clip and they're like, "Oh my goodness, she did it. Why can't I?" And they have an idea that they want to share that they maybe haven't like fine tuned, but they know they want to get on a TEDx circle, a TEDx red dot somewhere on this planet, but they haven't done it yet. It hasn't happened yet. What would you say to them?
I think keep trying. I think one of the best opportunities is that there are so many TEDx's happening globally. So also don't feel obligated to make it somewhere that's in your hometown. Like that would have been easier for me, of course, to just say like, hey, I'm going to drive over and it's local and things like that. And I know people in the audience, but I actually feel like it unlocked something in me to have to travel for it to actually solidify it as the big deal that it is. And so now, if I do want to do it again, I can look for something local or things like that. But there's literally a stage with your name on it. There's somebody who is in the audience who needs what it is that you have to say. And I got to witness that getting off stage and meeting someone who, funny enough, was sitting next to my mom. And she was so excited about the conversation. So, of course, my mom became a proud mom. That's my daughter. And so the lady asked, she was like, I would love to, chat with her after. So my mom's texting me. She's like, somebody wants to chat with you about your talk, and she was really impacted by it. So we're now LinkedIn friends and we've connected and things like that. And so it allows us to really open up to connections that we need to make. So again, it's one of those things where you can't allow nerves or ego or scariness or anything like that to interfere with it, because you could be unblocking something for somebody because they heard what you had to say.
Mm, mm, mm. Wow, that's a mic drop moment. Brianna, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.